حيدر إمامي
يا علي 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 علي
حبي وغرامي يا علي 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 حيدر إمامي علي علي أحلى الأسامي
اسم الله دوم ابتدي وحيدر إمامي
علي
حيدر إمامي
علي
حيدر إمامي نور المحب يبتدي أحلى الأسامي.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين رحمة للعالمين طه وياسين بالقاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين ورحمة الله على محبيهم ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. Respected Mu'mineen, Assalamu alaikum Jamia wa rahmatullah. As I had mentioned yesterday, inshallah, today will be our last session on the Masail discussion, and after that tomorrow, bi'idhnillah, we will start our discussion on Surah Al-Mubarakatul Yasin. I want to mention and just clarify one thing, and I've appreciated the discussions and the Mu'mineen's questions and everything that we've had after the normal gatherings here. By the grace of Allah Ta'ala, and I want to thank the Tabligh committee for making sure that this is done, and I hope that this continues in the future as well, because it's an important reminder. Maybe we may not, maybe we didn't learn anything new, but at least to remember is important, and just as important as well. And there's a lot of things that have come up now. I wanted to clarify what I had mentioned on the very first day. I have not covered, not even 10% of the Masail of fasting. So please refer to the Tawdil Masail is available in Gujarati, in English, in Farsi, in Arabic, in French, whatever language, inshallah, that you want. The Masail is available. So if there's anything, please do refer to it, do check into it. But I just wanted to, as I mentioned yesterday as well, to wrap up the things that I had either left behind, and there were just two other important aspects that I wanted to finish today, inshallah, bi'idhnillah. Number one, when we were talking about the kafara and the feeding of 60 people. So if I, for example, break my fast for no legitimate reason and I have to feed 60 people, we mentioned yesterday that they must be 60 different people. It's not one person for 60 days, okay? But what is allowed in the Masail, that for example, let's say for example, my son and I both have a kafara, or my wife and I both have a kafara. So we decide that group of 60 people who are mustahak, who are in need, we can feed them, for example, my kafara in the afternoon for lunch, and her kafara or my son's kafara in the evening. The same group of people, but for me it must be different people. So I hope that was clarified as well. The second important thing that I want to mention today, actually I said two things, there are going to be three things, but don't worry, I'm not going to take more time than has been allocated. The second thing I wanted to mention is the timings of the fasting. Now, we know one thing, that we want our roza to be accepted, just like we want our namaz, our salat to be accepted. And one of the things that, of course, when we are reading, when we are looking into, and I appreciated Maulana Sahib's discussion on the du'as. Again, this is very important because maybe most of us may not understand Arabic as a first language, but it is important for us to get that message and to understand it in our own language, whether it is Urdu, Gujarati, or English, or what have you. So when we look at the Arabic starting and the ending times of the fasting or the salat or any of the ibadats that we do, even for the Hajj, for example, the timings become extremely critical because that determines whether the ibadat that we are performing reaches qabuliyat, acceptance or not. So when we look at the time of fasting, we are told that it coincides with the time of Fajr, Salatul Fajr, which is known as Subh Sadiq. Now, having said that, you will see that in the calendar you have got something called Imsak and then something called Subh Sadiq, or the Fajr time. I think one of the two you pretty well use. Please keep one thing in mind. When the timetables, those calendars are prepared for you, this is to make it easy for you and me to at least judge what time. These are not die-hard timings. I just want to emphasize this fact. The reason for that is, of course, to make it convenient for the mu'mineen so that we don't have to go out every night looking for Subh Sadiq or waiting for the time of Dhuhr when Zawal Ain takes place, or Ghasaq al-Layl takes place when the sun has set and we are waiting for Maghrib. Just to make it convenient for us. So one of the things that you find, and again, even in North America, we have this very serious issue. I've noticed that the timetable here gives you a 15-minute sort of gap between the Imsak time and the Subh Sadiq or the time of Fajr. There have been some communities that time has been 25 minutes, and there have been other communities I've been to where it's been only about 5 minutes or so. The important thing to remember is when those timings are calculated, because we know one thing, that the time of Fajr is the same time that the Roza starts. So if we, even 1 second after the time of Subh Sadiq, if we are eating or drinking something, the fast becomes batil. And reciting Namaz Fajr even 1 minute before the time of Salat also makes the Namaz batil. So timings become critical and important. So what happens is that, and again, I've spoken to the ulama who have compiled these timetables and at great length. And one of the things that I hope the mu'mineen understand and appreciate, that to calculate exactly Subh Sadiq is very difficult. I will not say impossible, but it is extremely difficult. There are a number of factors that take place. The lighting, the artificial lighting, sometimes there may be other articles or items in the sky. Sometimes, as I said, in our many parts of North America, we have got the aurora lights, the natural, the lights that actually cause the lack of distinction between the white thread and the black thread. So all of these factors make it difficult to ascertain the exact time of what we would say Subh Sadiq. So many of the calendars that our ulama, our scholars, our experts, the astronomers, the calculators have calculated, takes into account that, for example, when we say Imsak, we are certain that that time for Imsak is a precautionary, as an ihtiyat time, that you will be okay if you stop eating at that time. Don't do your Namaz Fajr at that time, but we are certain that that moment that you have got for Imsak, if you stop eating, your fast will be okay. The time that Subh Sadiq is announced in the calendar is a comfortable precautionary time that we know that Salatul Fajr has already set in. Is everybody clear on that, inshallah? So by that time we know that Namaz Fajr has already set in, maybe a minute or two before that, but we know that that time that is stated as Subh Sadiq, because there's one thing in astronomical terms, or even in fiqh terms, that is known as Subh Sadiq, the true dawn. There's something known as Subh Kadhab, the false dawn. So we must ensure that our salat starts at Subh Sadiq, not Subh Kadhab. Okay? And likewise, we cannot, the fast also starts at Subh Sadiq, so we have to be careful on these times. That's why the calendars that were prepared in most of the Shia world are a precautionary time. So don't go exactly like to the minute, because we know that the time has been allocated, so I don't want to spend extremely unlengthy amount of time. Of course, the time of Dhuhr is somewhat easier. The time of Maghrib, you can just look outside and it's much easier. Subh Sadiq is the one that has got a lot of distinction. Perhaps if Allah Ta'ala wills it, and inshallah, as the topic unfolds, even on the nightly program, I might just briefly allude to this issue, so at least those of you who are here, you'll have a premonition to what will be taking place. The last thing that when I was going through my notes, I wanted to make sure we covered, is the fast of course, who can fast, who need to fast, upon whom fasting is wajib. We know that, of course, being baligh is the condition or the prerequisite for namaz, fasting, hajj, zakat. As far as khums is concerned, bulugh is not a condition, according to Hazrat Ayatollah Uzma Aqai Sistani. So as far as the masal of khums is concerned, even if it is a nabaligh child, they still have to give their khums. So the wali is responsible for giving the khums. He is the one marja that mentions this bulugh. But for all the other ibadat, bulugh, being baligh or baligha, is a prerequisite. Now, who are exempt from fasting? Who do not have to fast? Those who may be, now just being elderly in itself is not a condition, but if you are not able to withstand without food and water or that, then of course you are exempt from that. If you are ill, that you're needing to take medication, you have to eat regularly, those people are exempt. According to the Masail as well, if somebody is expecting, if a lady is expecting, And the keeping fast may be difficult, challenging, may be unhealthy for the child or for herself, then she is exempt. She can make up the qada at a later time. A lady who is breastfeeding. Now here also, it means breastfeeding either your own child, or even if, for example, breastfeeding is a job that you have been given, or somebody has asked you to do it for them, they cannot have enough, and you feel that the milk flow may not be enough, then she would also be exempt from fasting and make the kafara later on. The other issue of those who are exempt from fasting is the traveler, the musafir. And again, I am just going to briefly do an overview of this. The issue of traveler and traveling is not applicable to those whose job is traveling, courier drivers, taxi drivers, those who are truckers, lorry drivers, those categories, those kinds of people whose job is traveling, or whose kathirus safar, who maybe his school is in another city, his residence is in one city, or his job is in another city, he is in one city. Those are of course, they still do have to fast. The issue arises if somebody, for example, I decide to go to Arusha, and of course, there are different makruhat. It is makruh to travel just for the sake of avoiding fasting. It is not haram, but it is not recommended. Also, the ulama mention, Agha Sistani does mention, that if possible, if you need to travel, preferably after 24th of Mahr Ramadan, but if you have to, or if it's for Hajj or Umrah or something, then those are all exemptions, okay? Now, what constitutes a traveler, a musafir? The fiqh masail tells us the number of 8 farsakh. And according to the interpretation or the translation that Marhum Mullah Asghar Sahib Qibla Allah Maqam has given, is 1 farsakh is approximately 5.5 kilometers. So 8 farsakh, if you convert it into miles, you're looking at about 28 miles. If you took it in kilometers, approximately 44 kilometers. Now again, remember what I mentioned. From where do you calculate this 8 farsakh return journey? So please keep that in mind. 8 farsakh is return. So 4 farsakh one way, 4 farsakh one way, another return. Now this can also make up 8 farsakh. For example, let us say that it's 5 farsakh to go and only 3 to come back. The roads are different, the situation is different, whatever the case. Or it's 3 to go and 5 to come back. You are still considered musafir if you do not go to that place for more than 9 days. So 10 or more days. Okay? So you go on a journey, decide to go there, and now you are considered a musafir. So your salat, of course, is qasr. Your namaz of Dhuhr, Asr, and Isha is shortened. Maghrib and Fajr do not get shortened, so please be careful of that. And thereafter you are musafir. Now, another exemption from this is if I decide, let's say I'm going to another city to commit a sin. I want to go kill somebody. I want to go commit zina. I want to go gambling. I know they'll tell me that gambling is also available here in Dar es Salaam, but I don't want anybody to see me, so I go to another city with the intention of haram. Then I must fast, my salat will be full, I would not be considered a musafir all the way. Now let us say, for example, or also here, I gave major sins as well. Let's say I'm going on a journey that my father told me not to go on. Or if a wife is going on a journey that her husband told her not to go on. That still qualifies as a haram journey. Salat would be full, fasting will be completed in that place. Now, if I am deciding that I want to go visit somebody who is ill, I want to go visit somebody who is sick, I want to go visit a friend, maybe he is leaving and then this is the only time and I have to go there. In the course of going out of this, going towards that, the distance that would make me a musafir, along the way, I decide that, well, since I'm there, I might as well go steal some money. I might as well go rob a bank. I might as well go do something haram. If that happens, then I am still considered musafir. My fast would not take place and my salat would still be kosher. So if a sin arises or happens, my intention was not to sin, but it happened along the way, or I decided along the way, then I am still in that category where my fast would be I would not be able to fast. Salat will be kosher. Where does this line start from? This is the last point, inshallah, that I'll mention. The limit is known as Hadd Tarakhus. The Hadd Tarakhus, the limit of the city, is from the last house of your city. So, for example, if you know or if you have an idea that the last house of Dar es Salaam is so-and-so or so-and-so place, or the border whereby if you look behind you cannot see that the last residence or the house or the last building or business or whatever, then the Hadd Tarakhus starts from there. I mean the city limit starts from there. 14 miles or 4 farsakh from there, or as I said, the total of 8 farsakh would start the calculation to Hadd Tarakhus starts from there. So as soon as you cross that, that is known as Hadd Tarakhus, where your fast then becomes null and your salat at that point becomes qasr, shortened, shikast, okay? So this is again just a brief overview of what the ahkam of the fasting, the kafara that we had left pending from yesterday, and the exemptions from fasting, the timings of the fast. These were just important things that, and again, as I said, I know that perhaps I took one extra day on this, but it was important for me to just finish these pending and remaining issues. I thank all of you for your sabr and your patience. If there's any brief questions, inshallah, we can please, let's try and stammer. Yes. Yes. In the opinion of Sayyid Sistani, as well as this was the same opinion that Imam Ayatollah Al-Khoy al-Maqam had, which differs slightly from that of Imam Khamenei or Imam Khomeini, is that from the main border of the city you begin your. Now, if you can, now again, the experts here, the ulama who are residing here would be more qualified to explain whether, Dar es Salaam is considered a big enough city, and the surrounding areas that you have described are considered as the overall part of Dar es Salaam, or do they have their own mayor, they have their own city council, they have their own sort of borders and boundaries. If you look at, for example, Toronto or London, you've got Stanmore, you've got Harrow, you've Middlesex, you've got Streatham, you've got Balham, you have Tooting. So all of those. So in the opinion of for example, Ayatollah Sistani, because I mentioned I would talk to him, he basically considers that as one city. So from the outskirts of that city, you begin the calculation. Not from your city center, not from your home. In the opinion of Imam Khomeini, Ayatollah Khamenei, it is from your home. So if you've got a large city that you would say a metropolitan city like Dar es Salaam, and from one end of Dar es Salaam, if you're living in the southwest corner to the northeast corner, is more than this. The return journey will be more than 8 farsakh. So in their opinion, you would not be able to fast if you go there. But in the opinion of Sayyid Sistani, you would still be fasting. Again, considering the fact that Dar es Salaam would be the same. Maulana Sahib, agar aapke liye ye masla aaya ho, to if that would be considered as one city, then I can feel comfortable that the itminan is there and I'm not committing anything wrong. Thank you for the question. Shukriya. Okay, well, he's just got to follow up and then I'll shoot you. Yes. The median, yeah. That's right. Okay. And again, yes. When it comes to, and I think for the benefit of the recording as well as the benefit of those who may not have been able to hear, the time of Zawal, which is the median point when Dhuhr is setting in, we have this 10-minute allocation. Not only in Dar es Salaam, many communities do that as well. So just to address, when is the exact time of Dhuhr? We should just keep in mind that the minute the sun reaches, and again, if you look at the writings of fiqh, it tells us when the sun falls in such a way that you don't throw a shadow. So that's basically the exact time the sun is immediately on top. Of course, again, the ihtiyat, you can say or you can assume that the time is right there, but because the ihtiyat is as soon as this zawal has set in, and the same issue arises in Maghrib as well, that, sunset is not the time that we as Jafris do, it is after sunset. Ghasaqil layl is what the Quran talks about. That means the night has set in. The zawal has set in. So, for example, if you look at this line as the exact time that the sun is in the median, even if you give like 2 minutes or 1 minute, just as soon as that you know that you're content that you are not, for example, some mirage or some misconception in my ability to see the shadow or not to see the shadow is not impeded by any way. So that is why again 10 minutes would be a precaution, and the additional 10 minutes is to give the mu'mineen a chance to come there. And again, people have asked, well, what about the fadila time? What about awwal time? Are we losing thawab? Are we missing out? There's a couple of issues here, and I think that this might be what the direction that some of the mu'mineen, even for Jummah, because to unseasonably, unreasonably delay Jummah will actually make the Jummah void. You need to make sure that Jummah, as close to that time of Jummah as possible, is maintained. However, there's again a discussion amongst the ulama as to what amount of time, what constitutes fadila time, what constitutes awwal waqt. Okay? Fadila time is what we have to remember. Fadila time, we have a little more leeway, a little more time than awwal waqt. And you still get the maximum thawab for that salat. So by having this 10-minute delay, perhaps not only are you still within the fadila time, and you still are probably within the awwal waqt, but you're also getting the additional thawab of more mu'mineen participating in Jamaat. So as coming back to your question, the immediate time that Zawala takes place, you do need to wait at least a couple of minutes to make sure that the yaqeen is there. One is the ihtiyat, one is the yaqeen that you need to be comfortable with, inshallah. A follow-up to this same? Okay, good. Yeah. Subhanallah, yes. Uh-huh. Yes. 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 The question. Yes. There have been some calculations that have been done that our brother is asking about in the University of Tehran, as well as the Maraja's offices. Many of the Maraja, including Ayatollah Sistani, has got actually programs that calculate this. Many of the astronomical departments of different universities around the world also have the nautical, the twilight, dawn, and all. Again, perhaps in Africa this may not be so relevant because it's only 3, 4, 5 minutes maximum. In parts of the world where, for example, the Scandinavian countries, Northern America, the northern part of North America, again, when the ulama have calculated this, they have taken that ihtiyat and that precautionary time into account when they have calculated the timings for that really specific area. This is one of the reasons why, sometimes people just think that Maulanas come and they have to do namaz and they have to do, roza and namaz mayat and majlis and all that. In actuality, there's a lot of responsibility on those scholars who are in not only North America but anywhere in the world to make sure that their localities have got a timing that is comfortable. And again, there may be differences of opinion, because even in the astronomical department, what the twilight, the nautical, and the actual calculation of dawn has varied from a number of experts as to what really constitutes dawn. The Sharia gave us that when you can distinguish a white thread from a black thread, when you are in a place where there's no other artificial or other lighting or other impediments, it's not overly, the moon is not overly bright, the clouds are not overly reflective. I mean, there's so many factors that you can appreciate. So, as I said, the calendars that we have used and compiled, we have taken as best precautions we can, and that's why I mentioned just a minute ago that in many of the communities that I have been to, we have actually a 20-minute difference between imsak, when we tell people to stop eating, and namaz al-fajr, when we actually tell people that namaz is sahih at this time. So that has been a challenge, and I'm sure will continue to be a challenge, because there will be that difference of opinion. The calculations, again, please do keep in mind that even though the calculations are done by computer or whatever other way, calculations are also fallible. They are not masoom. So somebody had to program what constitutes subh sadiq, and that's why you get this variance. Inshallah, may Allah accept it, but tomorrow sawalat today. Sorry. Yes. 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 The question is that I mentioned in passing that according to Sayyid Sistani, Bulugh is not a condition for khums. For everything else, it is a condition, prerequisite, not for khums. Basically, to clarify the masail, that yes, that is an instance. So, for example, let's say, and this has been, I don't want to say it's been a trick used, but it's been, I've kept money for my daughter, I've kept money for my son. He is, 6 months, a year old, 2 years old, but I want it for his education, I want it for it's his money or her money, I've given it to them. There is no khums on me if I am a muqallid of other maraja. But according to Sayyid Sistani, even that child who is not baligh, khums is liable on him or her. Even if they are 5 years old, 4 years old, 2 years old, whatever. That is their money, khums must be paid. And the wali, in most cases the father or the grandfather, is responsible for making sure that that wajibat is allocated. So as far as the reasoning why in khums, why not in other things, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, whatever Aga's basis is, of course, is in his conclusion and natija. But for salat, obviously, it is understood that a nabaligh will have difficulty with salat. But perhaps his foresight or thought on that is that, I mean, the money is sitting there, it's not benefiting anybody, at least it can be of benefit to Imam Zamana Ajjallaha Ta'ala Tuhuru, or the cause of the Imam, inshallah. So that is this is the clarification, not the reasoning, but the clarification. But thank you for that. Ji. Inshallah. Yes. Inshallah, okay. So, Jazakallah khair, okay. So, like I said, just keep this in mind, and I think that if this was not a commonly known masail, then we do need to make sure the mu'mineen are aware of it, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. May Allah accept our ibadat. May Allah Ta'ala forgive our sins. Give us the tawfiq and strength away from sins. All of those who are ill, grant them shifa kamila from their illnesses. Those who are in debt, help them fulfill their debts. Those who do not have offspring, Ya Allah, God, grant them God-fearing, pious children. Those who have got children and offspring, keep them on the path of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad and the Quran and Majid. Ya Allah, protect our ulama, our maraja who are serving, giving their lives, their efforts for the sake of Islam and Ahlul Bayt while the Imam is in occultation. We ask you, Ya Allah, bihaqqi hadha shahr Ramadan, that hasten the return of our Mawla, our Hujjah, so that the end of zulm will take place. Zamana is zuhur we want to see with our own eyes, and we want to be amongst the ashab and the ansar of the Imam. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. One Surah Al-Fatiha for all the marhumin who are no longer with us in our family, community, and our friends. Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Maliki. نستعين صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. صدق الله العظيم. وان صلوات على محمد وعلى محمد.